Hi, this is Charles, and this is the ChangeVlog. Right now it's 6 a.m. I'm just getting ready to head over to my men's small group, which is a Bible study of 5 or 6 men. We meet at the local Panera Bread. We follow a program that our church suggests. Usually involves it. It usually involves reading some passages from the Bible, maybe a little write up from like a workbook, sometimes even a video. We bring a portable DVD player and we watch the video and then we discuss it. There's usually like a question section in the workbook that challenges us. And yeah, so today we'll be talking about spiritual growth, and it starts with my 615 um, men's Bible study group that meets at Panera Bread. So I'll see you in a little bit because I am on my way. Thanks. So, like I was saying earlier this morning, today would be the spiritual day, the fourth on my list of vital areas that have been affected by the betrayal of my wife and the end of my marriage. Those four areas, again, were physical fitness and health, emotional health, financial stability, and then spiritual growth. I think they all tied in together, and I think that this one definitely has a large umbrella for me. I am a Christian male. Um, I have known Christ for about 10 years. And my story is actually interesting because I always felt like that moment of confirmation came through my relationship with my uh, wife. And that's a difficult thing. And when all of this happened for me, um, that was one of the things I struggled with. And it actually um, pushed me in a different direction than what you might think at first. I mean, if you think that somebody has confirmation of a belief through something and then that thing fails, you think that they would say, oh, well, forget that, that must not be true, and that belief would go away. But actually, what it made me do is it made me search harder. It made me look more at what I believed, and it made me walk the walk a little. I think that one of the big things that's came out of this that's a positive is that I think my faith and my Christianity prior to this, I was talking the talk, and in a lot of areas, I was not walking the walk. And I believe it's weird how we repeat things in our life and how things have meaning throughout. I would actually say that my faith and my journey to Christianity started with a divorce. When I was young, my parents actually divorced, and it was a huge, huge event in my life. Prior to my parents splitting, I actually remember my mother having this big white Bible. It was like white or silver, and it was white and it had silver lining actually. It said a Holy Bible on the cover. And I actually remember my mother reading us stories from that Bible when I was really little. And I've talked to my brothers about this, and they don't remember that at all because again, my youngest brother I believe was one at the time of the split, so he doesn't remember that much. But I remember going to church with my mother. I remember going to church with my mother when I was little. Um, uh, and having some kind of church spiritual influence in my life. But again, I was very young when my parents split and went through with the divorce, and I don't remember any religious influence from a parental figure after that time. And then what happened is I went to high school. I would have to say high school was a major changing point for me. I started to look around, and many of my friends came from different faiths and denominations, and I wondered why they were going places on Sunday mornings, or why they were going to retreats, or why they were doing things that I wasn't doing, and why they, spoke of church functions, or God, or Jesus, or other beliefs. So I started to experiment with this. my first serious girlfriend, who I dated for a very long time, like 5 years or so. Um, Started dating her my sophomore year, and she was Catholic. And I started to go to Mass with her family as we started to date longer and longer, and the relationship became more serious. And I got exposed to Catholicism during those years. And I found it interesting. I mean, there were a wide variety of people in there practicing in different ways. And, I would note that I saw people reading newspapers during Mass who never looked up from their newspaper and knew exactly when to chant and when to spit out the words of their prayers. And I saw that as kind of defeating myself. And that was an issue for me. Now, I had another friend who ends up playing a huge role for me. Her and her father and her entire family, really. I was one of my best friends in high school, and her father was actually the pastor of the Baptist church in Canandaigua. And her and I hung out a lot, and we would discuss things, faith-based things. I would tell her my background, she would tell me hers, she would give me her point of view, and she actually played a huge role later on in my life. And I actually would go to her father sometimes with questions and exploring different things and asking why they believe something or why they didn't. And it was a huge moment, a huge relationship, I would say, in my teenage years. Then as I got into college, I started to explore more friends. I had a friend who was just clearly an atheist, didn't believe that things had souls, didn't believe that there was any place for us to go beyond this earth, didn't believe in a God or creation, and he was very much set in his ways. And we would have great lengthy conversations because, again, at this point, I didn't know what I believed. So I was very open to listening to everyone's point of views. And then I met a cool friend while I was in college who was Jewish. And it was very interesting to challenge him on some things and him to challenge me. And he's still a great friend, and I talk to him often, and he's actually helped me over the past year. But his family obviously grew up in the Jewish faith. He actually came from another country, emigrated here. He's now a U.S. citizen, it's very cool to listen to his point of view and his perspectives. So here I was, this early 20s, wandering soul, and I'm exposing myself to as many religions as possible. I went to church or Mass or different places of worship with as many friends as I possibly could through these years. And it was really interesting to me, and I searched. And then I also, somewhere around the age of 23, I had actually sat down one night by myself, and I had thought about all this information that I had collected over the years, all the conversations I had had, and I actually decided that I believed that Christianity was what I believed in. I actually believed that Christ had died on the cross for our sins, and that there is one God, and that He loves us, and we can choose to live by His path, or we can choose to deny His path and live in sin. And with that, sin also often creates pain and suffering, and that understanding has really been challenged over the past year. Right around 23, I made this decision, and then a full circle. It comes back to my friend in high school whose father was the Baptist pastor at the Baptist church in my hometown. And I'm going to go ahead and use her name. I think it's a big deal. Jenny, if you're out there, if you're watching, it's you. And I don't know if you've ever heard the story, but you were a part of it, obviously. So I was sitting down with Jenny at her family home one day, and I was telling her about this long journey that I had, and how I think I had finally come to the point where Christianity was what I believed in. And we started talking about some different avenues, and she changed my life in that moment forever, because as we're discussing some of the stories and my experiences with the churches and all that kind of stuff, she says, "How often do you read the Bible?" And I looked at her, and I was like shocked. I was like, "What do you mean?" And she says, "Well, how often do you read the Bible? If you think that Christianity is what it is." And I was like, "Well, I've heard pastors talk about it. I've read things online. I've had discussions with people about the Bible, but I don't even own a Bible, Jenny." And she just looked at me, and there was that split second of shock type thing, and she disappeared into another room. And I was sitting there, and Jenny came back out of the other room holding a Bible. And actually right here, um, this Bible right here was my first Bible, and it was given to me by Jenny. And that changed my life. I immediately went home and I started reading the Bible. And it was then about 3 months later, as I was working my way through the Bible, that I met my wife. There she was, just out of the blue. It was kind of crazy. Our first conversation was actually about how neither of us was looking for a spouse, that we were done with relationships for a while, and that we were focusing on different things. She had had some bad relationships, and here she was, 21 years old, and already had 2 children. And I had actually, I had a 5-year relationship with the person that I told you about earlier, who was Catholic. Lasted like sophomore year of high school to sophomore year in college, and that ended poorly. And then I had dated a few people, but nothing really went anywhere, and I was kind of focusing on my career at that time. So we were like friends, and we were just like, well, this is great, but neither of us are looking for a relationship. And as that relationship grew, and our hearts grew fonder of each other, and the relationship developed, and we nourished it, and love grew, and we decided that we could be a couple. And it was about the time when her and I had a discussion about living together, about getting married, and about me someday adopting her children, that I would say I believe that picking Christianity, choosing Christianity as my faith and believing in it, I would have to say at that point I was believing in Christianity, but I wasn't feeling it until that point, until my ex and I had that conversation about one day being married and one day adopting those children and making them my own. And everything just seemed right. And as I continued to develop my relationship with Christ, my relationship with my wife, and as all of those things happened, we eventually lived together, we got married, I adopted those children, and they are now my own. And now, even in this horror of the past year, now those kids are under my sole custody. And I've been blessed, even though my wife made these choices and has divided our union. My faith in Christianity, I believe, led me to a path to where I am now. And it was my relationship with my wife, it was that moment with Jenny, and this Bible that really reinforced that. So, well, I think that this is going to be it for today. I may actually go out. A friend has invited me to some bowling and an arcade, and I think there's a mini golf stuff. I may go do that. She's actually been a really good friend of mine for about 6 months now. She's actually my nanny, so I may go do that, and you may see some footage of that if that happens. Otherwise, thank you for watching. I hope to see you again in future videos, and good night for now.